Hi there, everybody. Thank you for sticking around. My name is Chapman. I'm going to briefly touch on how social media has affected modern activism. So, social media is everywhere. Its presence can be felt in our workplaces, our academic institutions, and virtually all aspects of our day-to-day life. In the last 6 years, the world has seen a significant rise in the utilization of social media for the creation of various social movements, from Occupy Wall Street to the Ice Bucket Challenge. Based off of my research, I have concluded that while social media can be a powerful mobilization tool for activists, its structural deficiencies render it inadequate when it comes to imparting long-term sustainable values. So, my thing's not working. There it goes. So, despite the ubiquity of social media in modern activism, very little research has been done regarding how the structure and language of social media has impacted both how and why we act. So as such, the goal of my thesis is to begin this process of filling this research gap by analyzing social media and social media research from a rhetorical and a cultural perspective. But to do this requires a twofold process. First, synthesizing current research pertaining to social media in activism so as to establish some sort of a historical basis for my research. And then second, reevaluating that information in a way that reframes it in a manner that emphasizes the language, how information is shaped, disseminated, and perpetuated through social media. So based off of my findings from this process, I've found that there are three distinct structural characteristics of a social media-based movement. There's a low bar to entry, which means that the only participation requirement is access to the internet. You don't have any prior experience requirements at all. Second, there's a decentralized power structure. So there is no leader or authority figure calling the shots. Everything is collectively organized and disseminated through social media. And finally, there's a lack of regulation, meaning there are no rules for participation. You can engage in a movement to any degree and in any capacity that you wish. So I want you to keep that in mind as we move on to one of my case studies, the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge from 2014. So I'm sure many of you probably participated in this, possibly. This was started by two Boston college students who were diagnosed with ALS. They decided to take an event that had been previously used by athletes to raise money for various charitable organizations and use it as the basis for a video-based trend intended to raise money for ALS research, as well as raising awareness for ALS. So how do you participate in this? Well, first, you accept. You accept the challenge on behalf of whoever has nominated you to participate in the event. Second, you record. You take a video of yourself dumping a bucket of ice water over your head to increase awareness for ALS. Yay! And then third, you upload. You upload your video to a social media service, usually YouTube or Facebook, and you tag at least 3 of your friends and challenge them. Now the caveat of this is, if a nominee fails to participate in this challenge within 24 hours of being nominated, they are forced to donate $100 to the ALS Foundation. So thinking in terms of those structural characteristics, let's look at why this might create some issues. So by not having any sort of explicit regulations regarding participation, most Ice Bucket Challenge participants tended to emphasize the financial and social aspects of participation rather than the purpose of the movement, which ultimately redefined the motivation for participation. So for example, looking at financial motivations, the way the donation is presented makes it more of a punishment. This ultimately has two effects. It motivates increased participation in the challenge by creating a sort of financial punishment for failure, but due to this negative implication, it limits overall donation. And then you have certain social motivations. If everyone in your immediate social group is participating, you're going to feel alienated, be ostracized if you don't engage in this. So you're more motivated to participate in it for the social purpose, the community purpose, rather than the purpose of the challenge. Also, total abstinence from it, so not donating and not participating in the challenge, that implies a lack of sympathy to anyone who's participated in it. The basic idea behind this is that if you're not going to participate, you should at least donate. And this is not hyperbole, as many ALS Ice Bucket Challenge advertisements suggested this, such as this one, which reads, "Last summer, I was the only person I knew who didn't do the Ice Bucket Challenge. 5 months later, I was diagnosed with motor neuron disease." So now, beyond the risk of financial punishment or being ostracized from one's community, the narrative being put forth is that should you not participate in the Ice Bucket Challenge, karma will see to it that you are crippled with a fatal degenerative disease. But was the movement successful? That's what most people care about. And this really depends on how one measures success, whether it's monetary success or long-term sustainable values. So if the name of the game is monetary success, then yes, in less than 3 months it raised over $220 million from donations alone. However, if the name of the game was to inspire long-term sustainable values of solidarity, charity, and raise awareness of ALS sufferers, then the question of success becomes a little less clear. For a short period of time, the Ice Bucket Challenge served the purpose of its creators and represented their values, but once it became a viral phenomenon, it became nothing more than a set of actions to be loosely performed under the pretense of charity. And this is a risk of using social media for activism. By not having stringent regulations, a digital activist movement is open to absolutely everyone. However, by not having some form of centralized leadership to regulate the actions of participants and maintain the core values set forth from the movement's inception, the movement will trend towards a multiplicity of convoluted and irreconcilable values, which ultimately subvert the initial motivations and values of a given movement. Thank you.